What starts as a simple courtroom hearing quickly turns into a tense and unforgettable showdown when a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen refuses to recognize the authority of the court. From the very beginning, the defendant challenges the judge's jurisdiction, insisting he does not consent to the proceedings and claiming he is a live flesh and blood man, not subject to statutory law. As the hearing continues, the situation grows more intense. The defendant argues that he rejected official documents, demands proof of jurisdiction, and repeatedly interrupts the court while attempting to assert his own interpretation of the law. Despite the constant disruptions, the judge remains calm and professional, carefully explaining the charges, the legal process, and the potential penalties the defendant could face, including fines, license violations, and even possible jail time. The tension rises further when the defendant claims to have filed a motion to dismiss the case, only for the judge to explain that proper legal procedures must be followed and that responsibility for correct filing lies with the defendant. With interruptions continuing, the judge ultimately warns that further disruption could lead to contempt of court, making it clear that courtroom rules must be respected. This dramatic exchange captures the clash between unconventional legal beliefs and the structured reality of the justice system, showing just how quickly a routine case can spiral into a heated courtroom confrontation. Watch as patience, procedure, and authority are put to the test in this gripping legal moment you won't want to miss.
Proceeding. All right, so what do you want to do?
I'm here under threat, duress, and coercion. I'd like to say for the record, my name is Jamil of the Family Lockhart.
Let's get the record established. This is the city of Detroit versus Jamel Amir Lockhart. Appearance for the record, please, Counselor.
Rita White, House Counsel, on behalf of Mr. Jamil Lockhart.
All right, Mr. Lockhart.
No one is representing me on my behalf. I don't know that.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Lockhart.
Yeah, so I am Jamil of the Family Lockhart, flesh and blood, living man, and attorney in fact for Jamil Lockhart and Legis Trust. I'm here by threat, duress, and coercion. I'm here making a special appearance, and I'm here to demand that the court prove jurisdiction over me as a live flesh and blood man. As I said, I submitted a challenge to jurisdiction. Jurisdiction must be proven and proven on the record. And then also I submitted Freedom of Information Act request for your foreign registration statement and anti-bribery statement, as well as that of prosecutor. There is no contract. Every presentment that was made to me was formally rejected and sent back to the court, which is what you have a copy of, by my notary. I do have a live witness notary who can come in and testify to that fact. Given that there is no commercial contract, no commercial agreement, I fail to see how the court has jurisdiction. Furthermore, there's been no injured party, and no, there's been failure to state a claim through a verified affidavit. So if someone can prove to me how this statutory commercial court has some kind of jurisdiction over me as a live flesh and blood human being, I think we could start there.
Well, let's start here. You have a notice is not what you think notice should be. Notice is what is if it's properly effectuated in the courtroom. And I'll certainly give you whatever hearing that you want if you file the proper motions and material to contest that. I'll give you an opportunity to be heard on that. But furthermore, what I'm looking at is I have a proof of service.
There is no proof of service that was rejected and sent back to the court. You have a copy of that.
You're not even listening. You're not even going to listen. I listened to what you said. Are you going to listen to me?
I am listening to you. I'm just responding to you.
All right. So why don't you listen before you start making statements?
Oh, you had paused. I thought you were finished.
What it isn't.
Well, go ahead.
Are you giving me permission to go ahead?
I assumed you were done speaking.
All right. Listen, I have a envelope with certified mail. I don't know what I believe the contents have been stapled to the envelope. It's got a proof of service effectuated by Nyla Perrin. I have a signed complaint here, signed by Officer Randy Randolph on 11/19/2019.
Is he here today?
And we can get him in here. Today is only date and time is set for arraignment. So you're just being arraigned, and what the arraignment purposes of your arraignment, and let's go through the whole thing, is you're here for a expired plate ticket. That is a civil infraction that carries a $145 fine. There's an allegation that you did not have a drove while license not valid or improper. That is a misdemeanor offense, punishable by 93 days at the maximum by 93 days in jail and or $500 in fine. On the same day and time, it was an allegation that you did not provide proper insurance. That is a misdemeanor as it's written here, and that is punishable by the maximum possible penalty of 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines. There's also a warrant for your arrest for an allegation of an improper, not valid driver's license. So today is the date and time set for arraignment. You have the option of pleading guilty, not guilty, or standing mute. If you stand mute, I'll enter a not guilty plea on your behalf. What would you like to do, sir?
I am here under threat, duress, and coercion to demand
You're not here under threat, duress, or
through some kind of jurisdiction. And until jurisdiction has been proven, we can go no further. I would also like to ask you, is this proceeding taking place under common law?
This proceeding is taking place in accordance to the court rules and the statutory laws of the state of Michigan.
So I am not a creature of statute. I am not under statutory law. I would demand that this proceeding take place under common law, as I am a live flesh and blood human being, under no authority but that of God.
All right. I'm not going to go back and forth. I'm going to give you another court date. I don't have any All
I need you to do is prove jurisdiction.
You don't tell me what you need me to do, sir. Don't do that. Just let me finish.
With all due respect, the court must prove jurisdiction.
I understand that. We can get this over with quicker rather than later if you let me do my job. What I was trying to say, you're making your claim and stating your case that the court doesn't have jurisdiction over you. In order for me to properly review that and go, it's got to be done according to the court rules. I need a motion, and I will read that motion.
I have submitted a motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction.
I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me. And then I'll give you a motion.
I have a timestamped copy of it if you'd like me to show you.
All right. You got to submit it to the court. Look at
the. It was filed by the clerk just 2 days ago.
Okay,
I have a timestamped copy of it.
It hasn't got to the file. I'm going to give you another pretrial date.
I would like to say I do not consent. The court has to prove jurisdiction. I filed that document a few days ago. Anything short of that is an admission that there is no jurisdiction and we have no further business. We have no contract here.
Okay, you're still. Did you have a question, sir?
None other than just stating that I do not consent to these proceedings and I do not accept any contract.
You've already put that on the record.
Good.
You came back in.
I would also like to ask why this Mrs. Rita White had claimed to represent me.
All right, let's go back on the record with Mr. Jamil Lockhart. How old are you, sir?
I am 27.
You're 27 years old, and you go ahead and you ask why Ms. White is here to represent you. Well, first and foremost,
Why did she claim to represent me and I have no knowledge?
I'll explain to you. First and foremost, she's the House counsel for this evening. So for this afternoon, she represents anybody who wants her representation as far as helping them to navigate and to defend themselves.
I have never expressed that want to her.
Why do you talk over people?
Well, I assume we were having a conversation. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
I am trying to have a conversation, but one's got to talk and one's got to listen.
Okay, go ahead.
You asked why Miss White said she represented you. Miss White said she represented you because she didn't know beforehand the position that you were going to take. So she's just merely
quite an assumption.
Her job.
That is quite an assumption. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, by the name that you put up on there, Jamil of the family Lockhart,
That is
I wasn't surprised I wasn't surprised the avenue that you were going to take on that. Just by the name.
You recognize where I'm going.
But she's not going to assume, I don't believe she's going to assume that she's going to treat you any differently than anyone else. And then you said that you didn't want her representation, and she...
Wouldn't you agree that for future reference, it might be better to ascertain that kind of information before she makes that kind of statement for everybody?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
So the assumption is that everyone wants her to speak on their behalf.
Yes, until...
Is that not a rash assumption?
Until they say differently, like you did.
Okay. Well, again, this whole time, there's a motion before the court to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction.
Well, there's not a motion.
There's been... Well, it has been filed. I have a timestamp copy of it. I can show you that if you need to see it. But
okay,
your clerk
timestamp
filed that document.
Let me explain to you. And this is just for your information. You say that you filed it with the court and the clerk down at the window, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But typically you want to, when you do your filings, that's why you want to have a judge's copy, and you want to specifically have that copy hand delivered to the judge's chambers. So we don't rely on the court clerks downstairs at the windows to make sure that these files get put into the proper place. You're not going to make.
Who do you rely on for that?
You're making, and because you don't want to make that assumption that that file is going to get into the correct file. You don't want to make that assumption. Would you agree?
Who do you rely on to make sure that filed documents get to the right place, get into
the person that's filing it, yourself?
So it is not, you're telling me it's not the duty of the clerk to ensure that documents are filed in the case where the judge can view those to the court and sent to the court by a notary. So I do have a live witness to attest to that fact. It has also been time-stamped. That was recorded as well. I have checked all my boxes when it comes to notifying the court. I've also given you a demand for your Freedom of Information Act request for your foreign registration statement and your anti-bribery statement. The idea or the fact that you do not have that is an issue, and it would mean that you are committing a crime against me and holding this statutory proceeding and trying to confuse me as a live flesh and blood man that I am a corporation beholden to the corporation which you represent. And that is my main point here today, is to tell you that I am not under your jurisdiction. I am a live flesh and blood man. You've already stated that this is not a common law proceeding. I am under no law but common law. We have no commercial contract which would enter us into any kind of statutory law.
Okay.
I failed to see the issue. And there's also no verified complaint with a signed affidavit.
Sir, let me stop you. And I'll let you put that on the record. I'll let you put it on the record already. We've already done those things. So I'm going to end it.
What you're committing here is a fraud against the people.
Okay,
That's
I'm
what you
gonna
were participating in.
okay. Whatever your
And
position is.
without your foreign registration statement, that's an admission that you are here as a criminal actor.
Okay, sir, I'm gonna end the hearing now.
And I do not consent to
And I'm
any
gonna
further
remove you.
hearings on this issue or this matter. We have no valid contract. We failed to prove jurisdiction. There is no valid claim.
All right, you've
I do
already
not
said
consent.
that, sir. I've already let you make a record, and I don't want you to mention any more because I'm gonna hold you in contempt.
What begins as a routine courtroom hearing quickly turns into a tense and dramatic confrontation when the defendant steps forward with a completely different agenda than simply addressing the charges against him. From the very first moments, it becomes clear that this will not be an ordinary case. Instead of responding to the court in the usual way, the defendant immediately challenges the legitimacy of the proceedings, calmly but firmly stating that he does not consent and does not recognize the authority of the court. His words set the tone for everything that follows. He insists that he is a live flesh and blood man, and claims that because of this, statutory laws do not apply to him. He argues that he exists only under what he calls common law jurisdiction and demands that the judge prove the court has authority over him before anything else can continue. The courtroom grows noticeably tense as this unusual argument unfolds, but the judge remains composed, speaking in a steady and professional tone while attempting to guide the hearing back to its intended purpose. The judge explains that the court's jurisdiction is already established under the law and that the hearing will proceed accordingly. She attempts to move forward by confirming the defendant's identity and reviewing the case details. However, instead of answering directly, the defendant continues pressing his claims, repeating that he does not consent to any contracts and does not accept the court's authority. Each time the judge tries to continue, he interrupts with another demand for proof of jurisdiction or another declaration about his legal status. Despite the repeated interruptions, the judge maintains patience and explains that the courtroom operates under established legal procedures, not personal interpretations of the law. She clarifies that consent is not required for the court to handle matters involving alleged violations and reminds the defendant that the purpose of the hearing is to address the charges filed against him. Her calm approach contrasts sharply with the defendant's persistent attempts to derail the process. As the exchange continues, the defendant claims that official documents related to the case were returned or rejected by him, suggesting that this somehow invalidates the proceedings. The judge explains that returning documents does not cancel legal notice and that the case remains active regardless of whether he chose to accept the paperwork. She emphasizes that legal processes cannot be dismissed simply by refusing mail or declaring disagreement. Still, the defendant continues speaking over the judge, attempting to assert his own interpretation of the law and insisting that the court must first satisfy his demands before anything else can happen. His tone grows more assertive as he questions the court's authority again and again, seemingly determined to control the direction of the hearing. The judge, however, keeps her voice steady and continues addressing the situation methodically, reminding him that the court will proceed in accordance with the law. Eventually, the judge begins outlining the specific charges involved in the case. She carefully lists each alleged violation, explaining them in clear terms so there can be no misunderstanding. The charges relate to vehicle compliance issues, including problems with registration, licensing, and insurance requirements. For each violation, she explains the potential consequences, including fines and additional penalties if the matters are not resolved properly. Rather than addressing these charges, the defendant once again returns to his central argument about jurisdiction. He repeats that he does not fall under statutory law and insists that the court must acknowledge his status. Before continuing, the judge listens but reiterates that the court recognizes him as subject to the same laws that apply to everyone else in the jurisdiction. She makes it clear that personal beliefs about legal status do not override established law. At another point in the hearing, the defendant claims he filed a motion to dismiss the case for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. The judge checks the record and explains that no properly filed motion is before the court. She goes on to describe the correct procedure for submitting legal motions, explaining that documents must be filed through the proper channels and received by the court in order to be considered. Simply preparing or sending paperwork does not guarantee it has been legally filed. The defendant appears frustrated by this explanation and continues to argue that his motion exists and should have been recognized. The judge calmly responds that it is the responsibility of the person filing a motion to ensure it is submitted correctly. She stresses that courtroom procedures exist for a reason and that they apply equally to everyone involved in the legal process. As the back and forth continues, the interruptions become more frequent. Each time the judge attempts to move forward, the defendant interjects with another statement about jurisdiction, consent, or his interpretation of the law. The atmosphere in the courtroom grows increasingly strained, yet the judge remains controlled and professional, demonstrating consistent patience while trying to keep the hearing on track. After multiple warnings to allow the court to speak, the judge finally addresses the issue of courtroom conduct directly. She explains that while the defendant has the right to speak and present arguments, he does not have the right to continually interrupt or disrupt the proceedings. She warns him that continued interruptions could result in a finding of contempt of court, which could carry additional penalties beyond the original charges. This warning marks a turning point in the tone of the hearing. The judge's voice remains calm, but her message is firm and unmistakable. Courtroom rules must be followed, and respect for the process is not optional. The defendant briefly pauses but soon resumes asserting his claims, seemingly unwilling to shift his approach. The judge then attempts once more to steer the discussion back to the practical matters of the case. She explains what steps are available to resolve the charges, what options the defendant has moving forward, and what the potential outcomes could be depending on how the case proceeds. Her explanations are clear and structured, focused on ensuring that the defendant understands the real legal situation rather than the theoretical arguments he continues to raise. Throughout the exchange, the contrast between the two sides becomes increasingly clear. On one side is the structured, procedural reality of the legal system, represented by the judge's calm explanations and adherence to courtroom rules. On the other side is the defendant's firm belief that his personal interpretation of the law places him outside that system. The hearing becomes less about the original violations and more about this fundamental clash of perspectives. As time passes, the judge continues demonstrating patience, repeating key points when necessary and allowing the defendant opportunities to respond appropriately. She consistently emphasizes that the court's role is to apply the law as written and that the proceedings will continue regardless of whether he personally agrees with them. The tension in the room remains steady as the conversation circles back again and again to the same arguments. The defendant continues to focus on jurisdiction and consent, while the judge continues focusing on the charges, procedures, and consequences. This repeated cycle highlights the difficulty courts face when individuals reject the basic framework of the legal system itself. By the later stages of the hearing, the judge's earlier warnings about interruptions and conduct carry more weight. Her tone signals that while she has allowed considerable opportunity for the defendant to express his views, the court's patience is not unlimited. The authority of the courtroom and the need for orderly proceedings remain central to her handling of the situation. The hearing ultimately stands as a powerful example of how courtroom procedure operates even in the face of resistance. It shows the importance of legal structure, proper filings, respectful conduct, and the reality that personal beliefs do not replace established law. At the same time, it captures the human tension that arises when those two worlds collide, the orderly process of the justice system and an individual's determination to challenge it at every step. What started as a simple legal matter transforms into a prolonged and dramatic courtroom exchange, filled with repeated challenges, patient explanations, and firm reminders about the rule of law. The judge's composed handling of the situation and the defendant's unwavering stance create a compelling narrative that keeps viewer engaged from beginning to end, illustrating just how unpredictable courtroom proceedings can become when legal authority itself is put on trial.